Welcome to Breaking News to Trading Moves. Today we're looking at a specific regulatory announcement in the biopharma space and how the market reacted to it.
We're focusing on the FDA approval of a drug from Vanda Pharmaceuticals called Nereus. This happened right at the close of 2025, December 30th or 31st.
Right. And our goal here is to analyze why this one approval for Vanda, that's ticker VNDA, caused such a reaction. We'll look at which companies benefited, who's now facing some new challenges, and, what people are watching for next.
And I think we have to start with the most standout fact.
The 40-year gap. This drug, Narius, also known as Tradipitant, is the first newly approved treatment for preventing vomiting from motion sickness in over 40 years.
40 years. I mean, that number alone tells you almost everything. The standard of care was just stuck. The options people have are decades old, and they come with side effects that everyone just kind of accepts, like drowsiness.
So this category was definitely ready for something new.
It was more than ready. It was waiting for a modern prescription option.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics. What exactly is Nereus approved for?
The approval is specifically for the prevention of vomiting induced by motion. And Vanda has already said they're planning a commercial launch in the next few months.
So this moves from a regulatory story to a revenue story very quickly.
Exactly. This isn't something that's years away.
And who are those incumbents? The ones who've owned that corner of the medicine cabinet for the last 4 decades.
You're looking at household names, almost all of them over-the-counter or OTC. Think Dramamine, Bonine, and then the prescription scopolamine patch.
And the key for them is that they're cheap and easy to get, right?
That's their advantage. They're very cheap and accessible. So Narius has to prove it's better, that its effectiveness and side effect profile are worth that jump to a prescription.
I also saw the term platform asset used to describe Tradipitant. We should probably define that because it implies this is about more than just motion sickness.
It absolutely is. A platform asset means the drug itself could work for multiple related conditions. So for Vanda, getting this approval is like a proof of concept. It opens doors to much bigger markets.
And what are those other markets?
They're already looking at other nausea and vomiting settings. But the big one, the one everyone is watching, is nausea that comes with GLP-1 drugs.
Ah, the popular weight loss and diabetes treatments. That makes sense.
Exactly. Nausea is a major side effect for those drugs.
Yeah.
So if Tradipitant can solve that problem, the opportunity becomes much larger.
So the market sees this approval for motion sickness as a step towards that much larger prize.
That's it. It's the validation that makes that colossal opportunity feel a lot closer.
And that potential is clearly what drove the trading we saw. So let's shift gears and look at the beneficiaries, the immediate winners from this news.
Yeah, we can group them into a few different baskets. The first one is the most obvious.
FDA, Catalyst, small or mid-cap biopharma. And of course, the primary name here is Vanda Pharmaceuticals, VNDA.
For Vanda, it's a game changer. You have a fresh approval, a near-term launch plan. That combination gets investors' attention. It puts a real number on future revenue.
And Vanda's win seemed to have a positive effect on similar companies. The name Sarepta Therapeutics, ticker SRPT, came up.
Right. Sarepta is another company whose value is tied to hitting these regulatory milestones. So when Vanda gets a win, it builds confidence in that whole subsector.
It shows it can be done.
A rising tide lifts the boats that are also waiting on the FDA.
Okay, let's move to a less direct connection. The second group of winners mentioned are companies with travel and cruise exposure, specifically Carnival, CCL, and Royal Caribbean, RCL. Now, I have to ask, isn't that a bit of a stretch? How much can a new motion sickness drug really help a cruise line?
It's a fair question. This is what you call a second-order effect. It's not about direct sales. It's about sentiment and removing trip friction. Yeah. Motion sickness is a real reason some people hesitate to book a cruise. If you have a highly effective new drug that takes that concern off the table, maybe it helps demand at the margins. Maybe people who do go on cruises spend more time out of their cabins spending money.
So it's less about a hard number on their balance sheet and more about improving the overall customer experience, which makes investors feel better about future demand.
That's the idea. It's a small qualitative positive for a sector that's very sensitive to these kinds of things.
That tracks. Okay, the last group of winners identified is anti-nausea and CNS-focused pharma, the symptom management theme.
This is a classic read-through trade. Vanda has success in nausea and vomiting, so the market starts looking around for other companies in that general space, especially those focused on the central nervous system, or CNS.
And the names mentioned are intracellular therapies, ITCI, and Bristol-Myers Squibb, BMY.
Again, it's not about direct competition. It's about the theme. The Narius approval shines a spotlight on this whole therapeutic area, drawing attention and capital to adjacent players.
Okay, so we've covered the positive side, but for every winner, there's usually someone feeling the pressure. Let's talk about the companies that were on the other side of this trade, the losers.
Right, the dynamic is pretty simple. A moat that's existed for decades has just been breached. So the companies feeling the heat are the ones who suddenly have a new branded competitor.
And the most direct group there has to be the OTC motion sickness incumbents.
Correct. We're talking about the companies behind those legacy brands. A new prescription drug like Nereus challenges their market position. For investors, it signals that these companies might have to spend more on marketing, maybe offer discounts.
Their growth story for these old brands might slow down.
Precisely. And the two big names here are Prestige Consumer Healthcare, PBH, and Church & Dwight CHD.
These are giants on the pharmacy shelves.
They are. And while Narius is a prescription drug, its very existence just changes the conversation. It signals a tougher competitive environment ahead.
The second category with some downside risk is generic and legacy antiemetic and patch alternatives.
This group includes the existing prescription options, the older generic anti-nausea drugs, and the scopolamine patch. If doctors start prescribing this new, modern option for severe cases, then demand for the older generics is going to soften.
And that could affect pricing for them as well.
It could. They could lose volume and face tougher pricing. The companies to watch here are major generic manufacturers like Viatris, VTRS, and Teva Pharmaceutical, TEVA.
So when a niche market gets a new innovation, the generic players in that space feel the squeeze.
They do. They're seen as having more competitive headwinds.
The last downside category seems more about market dynamics than direct competition. The risk-off rotation from non-catalyst microcaps.
This is pure capital flow. When a smaller biotech like Vanda gets a clear win, a confirmed success, it draws a sharp contrast with other small companies that are still burning cash and have much more speculative futures.
So money moves out of the uncertain stories and into the one that just got validated. The examples given were Cassava Sciences, SAVA, and Mind Medicine, MNND.
That's a good way to put it. The money flows toward the confirmed win. These other companies might be working on totally different treatments, but in the small-cap biotech world, a big success story somewhere else can pull capital away from the more speculative names.
Okay, so we've laid out the immediate market reaction. Now the key question is what comes next? What are the signals that will tell us if these moves have staying power?
That's where the real work begins. The market has priced in a successful launch, but now Vanda has to execute. We can break it down into 4 key things to watch over the next year.
Let's start with the most immediate one, the launch itself.
Point number 1 is launch timing and early demand. We're going to need to see hard data. That means initial script numbers, how quickly doctors are adopting it, and critically, payer coverage.
Will insurance companies pay for it?
Exactly. Is it going to be easy to get Narius covered? If the launch is smooth and doctors are writing scripts, the stock's move will be justified. If it's sluggish, you can expect some pressure.
The second point has to be about price. How do you compete with something like Dramamine that costs a few dollars?
That leads to point number 2, the pricing strategy. Narius is a prescription drug, so the market is expecting a premium price. The trick is finding that sweet spot.
High enough for good revenue, but not so high that insurance companies refuse to cover it.
It's a very fine line to walk. If the price is too high, it creates too much friction.
You mentioned earlier that the long-term story might not even be motion sickness, so that has to be the next watch point.
Absolutely. Point number 3, 2026 clinical catalysts. The focus is already moving beyond motion sickness to those GLP-1 trials. We need to see positive data there next year.
Because that's the much, much larger market.
It is. The GLP-1 opportunity is where the truly transformative value could be unlocked. Solving that nausea problem would be a massive win.
And finally, what about those incumbents? Do they just sit back and let this happen?
That's point number 4, the competitive response. We need to watch what Prestige and Church & Dwight do. Will they ramp up their marketing, offer big discounts, use their power with retailers to defend their shelf space?
A strong defense could definitely slow Narius down in the early days.
It could. We can't assume they'll just roll over.
That's a very clear roadmap for what to track through 2026. To wrap this up, let's just circle back to that long-term potential.
I think the way to look at this is that the motion sickness approval is Chapter 1. If Vanda can show Tradipitant works for GLP-1 related nausea, it goes from being a solution for a niche problem to a drug that could help a multi-billion-dollar drug class reach its full potential.
Mitigating a core side effect that limits adoption of those blockbuster drugs.
That's the real story that long-term observers are tracking.
A very clear framework for the future. Thank you for walking us through the Vanda approval and the market action.
My pleasure.
This is not financial advice or buy or sell recommendations. This is purely the opinion of the author.